Thank you so much, Don, for coming on board with us with this aerator trial. We've really enjoyed it. Loved coming out here for our trips and having a look around and seeing what you've done.
So with the autumn aerating, there has been, from my perspective, an incredible amount of growth that goes on. So what we've done in order to maximise the growth from aerating a paddock is also to incorporate rotational grazing across the farm. And I've done some fencing, which now brings me up to 12 paddocks. And so we move the cattle once a week for the majority of the year. And so, it's 12 weeks before that bit of land is grazed again. So it's 3 months of growth without any animals grazing it. That has helped in itself, but aerating as well, it's like you've given that paddock a bit of rocket fuel as well. You've opened up the soil, taken out any surface tension, which is what happens when the soil is compacted. The surface tension where the seed germinates and the roots start growing out is very, very tight. So even with rotational grazing, it's still you're waiting for plants to germinate and do their bit, whereas with aerated soil, it's already friable. The surface tension, the seed germinates and it can move very quickly out because the surface tension has been dissipated by the knife slits. And so the growth rate with the aerating and the rotational grazing, I guess did my research and crossed my fingers before I bought the aerator based on about 30% more feed for the cattle. Where it's been an autumn-winter rainfall pattern, an average rainfall pattern, it's far more than 30% extra feed. So in some paddocks, it's 100% more feed that we're growing compared to not aerating and not rotational grazing. So we've used it for our hardest, worst compacted paddocks on the place. And then I just aerate that. Some of the bad paddocks I do twice, 6 weeks apart whenever the rainfall comes. We go into the worst paddock on the farm and we aerate it and we work on it until it becomes the best paddock on the farm. And so it's been a real game changer for us. If I had have had a bigger tractor, I would have bought a very big aerator, and we have 450 hectares here, and I'd do the whole 450 hectares every year. In the past, I think the direction on trying to get native grasses established in pastures was to go to a seed supplier and sow directly, or to go and harvest yourself and then spread it out. And we've decided not to do that because we worked on the theory that the native grasses have been growing here for tens of thousands of years. So they've obviously adapted, and there's a sufficient seed bank in the soil in order to germinate. And so if they're not there, it's because we've either sprayed them out or the soil conditions, friability, the drainage and things just aren't suited for germinating those particular seeds. So again, the problem we found was that the soils were compacted and they had roly-poly and some pretty gnarly weeds in there, which we now know is nature's first line of defence in rehabilitating the soil by putting a plant in there that's got thorns so the animals can't eat it. Those tap-rooted plants open up the soil and then make it friable so the grasses can come back in. So the aerator again has created the friability and decreasing the surface tensions, and so all these other seeds which have been lying dormant for a long time have been allowed to germinate. if we find 20 different plants in a paddock, we are starting to think that that paddock is actually not very rich in biodiversity. Where I'm always aiming to get towards that 30 or 40 different plant species in every paddock, because each one of those plants performs a function, whether it's for the health of the soil or it's the health of the animals that are eating the plants that are growing in that soil. Especially cattle, they know what they want to eat, they know what's not nice to eat, they know that settles their bellies, and so they work it out. And so the more plants that we have available for their buffet, then it can only be healthy, and we don't have vet bills. The animal's health has never been better. The amount of different plant species we have has never been greater. The biodiversity that springs from that, the bird life and the reptiles and things, has never been richer. And we know that because we've been part of a baseline survey with Australian National University out of Canberra since 2007. So they come down 2 times a year. And they've been able to provide a list of different birds and animals and reptiles, and so we've been able to track the progress. It's like all of a sudden we kind of found this little secret, and understanding how the soil and landscape can respond with such richness. If it's just allowed to breathe and water is allowed to penetrate compacted area, it's actually not rocket science. I'm watering up some native umbrella grass at the moment as a summer pasture for the cattle. We've weaned our calves, and we found over the years that irrigated umbrella grass, windmill grass, the weaners will put on about 2 kilograms a day on this irrigated stuff. So we are using that as a summer pasture. It doesn't require fertiliser or it doesn't suffer insect damage, and so it doesn't need spraying with anything. As the animals, after about 3 weeks, we'll move the weaners onto more irrigated pasture, native pasture, but then we'll go through, while the ground is relatively soft still, and we'll aerate that and tow a steel frame behind, which then breaks up the manure and drops it into the slits that the aerator has made. So one pass will actually knock the seed from the umbrella grass and the manure into the hole, and it waits there until it rains or we're watering that pasture again. So I still can't see us spreading any fertiliser or spraying anything out at all. I think we've got a pretty good formula that seems to work regardless of conditions to a lot, and we'll continue to do that, I think. Yeah, if I do 300 acres a year, for me it's like I've just gone and bought another 300 acres. It's the same response. I'm getting nearly 100% more feed in a lot of these paddocks.